Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. Yes.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I don't know. Your thing is not working. Oh shit. I'm sorry. I forgot that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you
I
share
forgot.
now?
I forgot that I have to wear my earphones on my computer.
No
Okay, let's
problem.
see. All right, let's see. Where is it?
I know what happened. I think what you did is you started another meeting for some reason.
Uh-huh.
That's why it was two meetings going at the same time. That's
Yeah.
all right. I apologize. Put you through hell.
Okay. So let's see. What is this? Share screen. I don't know why. Oh, okay. Hold on. Share.
All right. We're in business.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I guess that's what was happening. I don't know. Well, anyway, it's okay. I'll just stay here. Um, okay. I'm watching. If anybody, let me now go. I'm a little confused now. Hold on a second. Where was I? Where is that thing that I? Oh, yeah, I have to go find it. Save it here. You see my
You have to
screen?
open it first. You have to open it first. Yeah. I see your
Open
screen.
what?
Yeah. No, okay, no. Well, that PowerPoint or
We good?
whatever.
What? We're good, right?
Well, I don't see my PowerPoint presentation.
You don't? How
No.
come? How come?
You have to grab it. You have to grab it.
I have to
Right
grab
there.
it.
I can see it. I could see it now. So now expand it and put it in the presentation form, not presentation format, the slide presentation on top
Right, right.
from
Hold
the
on a
start.
second. I also have to find I have to go to my so far nobody's showing up. Hold on a second. I have to go to my email to get your thing.
No, I can see the presentation.
No, no, I know, but I want to find your email so I could go. Yeah, I could go get grab those YouTubes when I have to. Okay. Yeah, I'll have it
Oh,
ready. All right. I don't want to do it right now, but I'll just press on it and it goes. Okay. All right. So now, I forgot. Where do I find how do I start presenting? Where is this? It should be.
going to power. Well, I don't see a screen again.
Do you see it now?
No, click on the PowerPoint.
Click on the PowerPoint. Hold on.
The icon.
Let me get those people in.
On the,
The
okay, good.
icon. Do you see it now?
Yeah, I see it now. Now you have to expand it first. Okay, and then on the top you have slideshow. Click on the slideshow. Start from the beginning.
On the top.
Slideshow next to animation.
Uh, wait a second.
You have a home, insert, design, transition, animation, slideshow. On the next to the where the file on the same row with the file.
File, home, insert.
Keep going.
And
Keep going.
keep going.
Slide more. Slideshow. It's like a 7. And then after the animation, slideshow. Click on the slideshow.
No. Wait. No, I can't see it because I have this thing. Share. You're sharing. Put this one. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you can leave it in this form. I think that's the. I mean, it's
you
just not
know,
a.
hold on a second. I still have to let all those people in. I'm watching. Let me see. I forgot. You see, I only used it once, so I forgot where it is. I remember there was
Oh, there you
somewhere.
clicked on it.
This is
Go back to
slide. What about outline? No,
no.
click.
Go to slideshow on top next to animation.
I don't see
Are you
that.
trying to get? Are you
No.
trying to get people in?
Yeah,
What are
I'm
you doing?
getting people in. I'm getting people in.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there are already people in. But no, but
Let
I'm not sure where's the animation.
you were just in it. It's on top on the top. I could see it.
Oh, you
I
could
could
see
see
it.
it.
Oh,
Move
yeah,
you move
I
the,
see animation. Yes,
next
and
to animation slideshow.
this slideshow. You see it. You don't see that part, but okay. So I press this.
No, you're not pressing the right thing. Move the. You see the board button where you have to move that bar down.
Yeah. How do I move the bar? You see
Or
that
you just
Lisa?
click on it and move it down.
This-
Just grab and click and grab and move.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I
Now
see
click on the slide.
slideshow. I
Yeah,
see slideshow. Yeah.
click on it.
Uh,
You not click
slideshow.
on.
I'm in a slideshow. Yes.
You
And
start the beginning from the beginning.
from the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, man. Sorry about that. Uh, so I click twice. Okay.
Hold on. Oi. Anyway, I just want to welcome everybody. Hi guys.
Hi, Zach. Hey,
How
there.
are you? 9 participants are on.
I'm looking
Bruno,
forward to this.
Beverly.
How's
Oh my.
how's the
Rachel.
weather, Zach?
Weather is amazing.
Oh,
Go to the beginning show. Or go to the beginning, Greg.
How do I go to the beginning?
Just you that arrow up, arrow up, arrow up.
I'm up.
You see the arrow down, up, page down, go page up to the
Page
beginning.
up, page down. Where is page up, page down? I don't see.
What's on the right? The keyboard, the arrows up and down. You see those page down, page up? It's next to the shift.
Maybe we should have a Zoom lecture.
Okay. So where is the page up, page down?
Next to the shift on the right. On the no, it's on your keyboard.
Oh, it's on my keyboard. Okay.
Go up, page down. Hi everyone.
Yeah. Let's see. Page up. No, it doesn't work on my
What about
keyboard.
arrow? Arrow up.
Arrow up. No. Let me
You
try
have to
again.
click on the presentation. Click on it first.
Click on presentation. Oh, click
And now
on
do
it.
page up. Yeah.
Page up.
Sorry everybody, we're just getting it up and running. You're on the last slide. You gotta go to the first slide.
Is that it?
No, well, I don't know. It's probably delayed. I don't see the first slide.
I'm on the first slide here.
Oh, you are okay. Maybe it's a delayed on my
Hold
side.
on, let me
Oh,
try again.
yeah. First slide.
Do you see now?
First slide. Yeah, it's taking its time. Right there. Perfect. Oh my God, it's kind of small. All right, fine, perfect. All right, hi everybody. We'll give it. I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes. We have so far 11 participants. Hi Rachel. Hi Men. We usually give it until to 10. Just to give you a synopsis, today is a presentation on tour of the archaeological museum, Istanbul Archeological Museum. It's a little confusing because an actual, archaeological museum has 3 sections to it. One is the Orient Museum, or stuff that predates Islam. Second one is actually called Archaeological Museum, which is mostly Lycian, Lydian, anything that relates to Greek. And then And then third one is a tile museum. So obviously we're not going to touch on the tile museum as much as it's interesting. But today we're just going to talk about two sections of the archaeological museum. Like I said, first one is going to be one that predates Islam, which is Hittites and whatnot. But we have chosen about 13 slides, and out of those 13 slides, I'm going to talk about probably 11 slides, and Greg is going to talk about Kadesh and the most important part of the archaeological museum, which is the tomb of Alexander the Great, which is actually not his tomb, but he will get to that. So we'll give it 3 more minutes for people to gather. Let me look at the participants. So far, 12. Michael is joining late today. Oh, Alva, you said Toronto is on lockdown? Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
the whole province now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they had to do something, but it's up to 2,000 in Ontario. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you can't even ski.
Oh, wow.
I love that
Greg,
wall, that Ishtar Gate.
I don't see the slides.
You don't see the slides? That's
You guys can
weird.
see the slides?
Just a tour of Istanbul. No.
Tour of Istanbul
I can
Archaeology,
see
right?
this slide. It says Tour of Istanbul Archaeology Museum. And there's a
Good.
picture
Okay.
of
All
a,
right, fine.
of a model.
It's just this dark on my side, but it's all right, no big deal. So, all right, I guess we can start. Greg, can you go to the second slide?
Yeah, that's good.
Ishtar
just
Gate.
start. All right, 1 second. All right. You know what? I'm gonna do no camera. I'm just gonna talk. Sorry. Okay. So I'm looking at slides on my side. Sorry, Ishtar Gate. All right. So I've just introduced what we were talking about. Is there's three different museums. As I said, Tile Museum. There's a Orient Museum, which predates. There is a Greek museum, which is called actually Archaeological Museum. One thing before we start, this is a discussion, topic. So whenever you have a question,
You're breaking up. We can't hear you continuously. We only hear every other word.
oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Let me just go downstairs. Give me 1 second.
Hi, Jane. I sent you a comment.
Hello, Min. I sent you a, thank you. I'll go look at the comment.
Sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm just gonna go downstairs. Oh, shit.
No, I think you're fine now.
All right, I'm fine now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, give me 1 minute. All right. Let me just grab my computer. All right. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, um, so as I've said, there's a three different museums. There is a museum of Orient, which predates the Islam. There's a Greek museum or archaeological museum within the archaeological, totalist, Istanbul museum, and there is a museum of tile, which we're not going to discuss. And today we're going to talk about 13 artifacts. And two of them, Greg is going to talk about, which is the most important one, the tomb of Alexander the Great, and he's going to talk about the peace agreement between Ramses II and Hattusili III, which is Hittites and Egyptians, or Pharaoh, particularly Ramses and Hattusili III. So let's start with the Ishtar Gate. So what's happening is, everybody knows Ishtar Gate basically was part of the Babylon Empire, and Nebuchadnezzar, as we all know from the Bible, used the Ishtar Gate to basically, to show the greatness of the Babylon. And the interesting fact about it, Nebuchadnezzar lived in 575 BCE, and it was a gate to Babylon. And as we know, Babylon was, it's Babylonian Empire, which basically predates Assyrian Empire. But then there was a resurrection of it, and that was a resurrection with Nebuchadnezzar. And we know Nebuchadnezzar from the Bible, where he destroys the first temple of Jerusalem. So it was a main entrance into the city, and Ishtar Gate basically was part of the program that Nebuchadnezzar used to glorify. As we know, Ishtar is a goddess, but he's particularly goddess. Godlike figure that he liked is Marduk. So he built a lot of the, particularly ziggurat. Everybody knows, ziggurat is a pyramid that's in Babylon, and it's called Bernanke. This ziggurat was in commemoration of the, for God Marduk. And also the third piece that he built was the Hanging Gardens. So what you see here, a picture of a lion, is basically from the Ishtar Gate. It was both, gate and entrance to the city. And basically, there was two writers that thought that it belongs to being a part of Seven Wonder of the World. But what's interesting, Alexander Lighthouse took over for it, and therefore it was knocked out from the from being being seventh wonder of the world. But people, two writers, particularly Antipater of Sidon and Callimachus of Cyrene, thought that they were actually should be part of the seven wonder of the world. And then go ahead. I'm sorry. So particularly, what does this Ishtar Gate signifies? So as you know, I've mentioned, Ishtar Gate was dedicated to the Babylon goddess Ishtar, and Babylon goddess Ishtar was responsible for fertility, love, sex, and basically also you see a lion, and the lion was particularly targeted and looked at as goddess Ishtar. But if you look at the other goddesses, for example, dragon was associated with god Marduk, and the bull was associated, which was part of the wall, with the god Adad. All right, and Adad was responsible for the weather. It was a weather god, and Marduk was basically, it was a national guard, national god of Babylon, and even Assyrians and Persians at one point, out of respect to Babylonians, worshipped Marduk. Let's go to the next slide, Greg.
Oh, you see it?
Not yet, but maybe it takes a sec.
Submit definition.
Yeah, Tabnit. So let's talk about this Tabnid Phoenician. So what's interesting, since we're talking about Istanbul Museum, we're going to talk about a lot about the Phoenician culture, because Sidon was part of the Ottoman Empire, and where it was located, a lot of discoveries were done at different times. Were particularly um, were particularly targeted toward Sidon culture, therefore Phoenician kings. So what was this sarcophagus? So the Tabnit was a Phoenician king of Sidon, circa 490 BCE. He was a father of Eshmunazar II. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but basically very important figure. So Tabnit sarcophagus, basically showing a Saturn royalty necropolis, is the oldest sarcophagus in the museum. This is officially the oldest sarcophagus, and happens to be part Phoenician, part Egyptian. And I'll get to that, how it is. So first we want to discuss how it looks. So the head is extremely large, and it's buried between shoulders, and the wide necklace relief covered the neck and the shoulders. The wide necklace relief covered, basically, it's what I'm trying to say is that this is it's part of the Pharaoh sarcophagus, and therefore the wide shoulders and a large head. That's how they were used to depict pharaohs. What's interesting on it, you have an Egyptian hieroglyphs and on the sarcophagus, and talking about the owner of sarcophagus, but you also have a Phoenician alphabet stated on the second part of the sarcophagus, and it's part of a tablet. If you go to the next slide, Greg. On the left, you have a tablet. That's the bottom part of the sarcophagus. That's written in Phoenician. So it's and what does it say? In general, the middle section is basically, as usual, they're saying, King Satan, that those who will open it will never find a peace in this world or the next. Basically, they're saying if you open it, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. As we know, this commemorates, basically they didn't want people touching sarcophagus because of the fact that it took basically, there was a mummy attached to it, next to it, and we're gonna talk about what was the mummification like. So, like I said, next to this exhibit, there was, next to the sarcophagus was a mummy attached to it, and let's just talk about the Tabnit himself. So, who was a Tabnit? They're saying he was a priest, of Ashtoreth and a king of Sidon, lying in a tomb. Basically, he was a priest and a king at the same time, which was actually commemorated with time. There was a combination that they did both things. And so in this case, how does mummification happen? So apparently it took 70 days to mummify a particular human being, after he died. And there was a special priest that were working on it, embalmers. And the way they were treating the body is, basically they have to have certain rituals that they have to know, and they have to be performed at several stages. And they have to have a particular knowledge of human anatomy. Otherwise, this would never take place. So the first stage of the process is removal of internal parts that might decay rapidly. So what do we start? With the brain, right? So the brain was removed by carefully inserting special hooked instruments out through the nostrils in order to pull out bits of brain tissue. It was a delicate operation, otherwise you'll mess up or disfigure the face, and they want face to be looking good, obviously. So embalmers then remove the organs of the abdomen and chest through usually, but they left the heart because they thought the heart contains the soul. We cannot remove the heart. And what's interesting is also they wanted to get rid of the moisture of the body, and the way to do it, they added a natron, which is a type of salt which was, had a great drying properties, and not just on top. They also put inside of the mummy in that case, and then they wrapped everything, in linen, and sometimes even being as careful as wrapping every finger, and then wrapping the whole body. So it was an incredible, meticulous process. So why were they doing it? So they believed in the three different spiritual. For us, we know spirit and soul is one thing pretty much. They have it as a three things. First one is a ka, second one is a ba, and third one is a ah. The ka was the double of the person. They would remain in the tomb and needed the offering and needed basically an offerings too. The ba was a soul, it was free to fly out of the tomb and return to it. And ah was basically, it was spelled akh. It's translated as a spirit, which had to travel through the underworld to final judgment and entrance to the afterlife. Okay, so that was the whole process. But the interesting thing is also, as we know, Egyptians particularly, they build pyramids. That was particularly a huge tomb, if you think of it. And they used to bring a lot of stuff into them, the furnishings, the food, because they thought the person would go on afterlife. So the general aspect is the body has to be preserved. So we're going to take all the decaying body parts, put it in a jar, and bury it next to the mummy. Any questions so far? Hello?
Guess not.
Quick one.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing your slides.
You're not? Is everybody else seeing the slides?
Yes,
Oh,
Well, then it must be the view. Go to the
Yes.
view.
yes,
Yeah, I can
it's
see
me. Then somehow I'll be
Right.
looking
You
to
have to
solve it.
look at the view and see if you could
Yeah.
see the correct view there.
Thank you.
All right. And then Greg is going to talk about the next part of the exhibit. So let me just talk about, in general, how the museum is situated. As I said, initially you enter through Orient Museum. So you have history of Hittites, you have history of, Lycian history, you have history of Egyptians, you have, history of cuneiform, history of Kadesh. So everything has to predate Islam, but doesn't touch the Ionian Greece or Lydian culture. So, and then I guess in this point, we're coming to where Greg is going to talk about Kadesh peace agreement. So let me just give it a little synopsis. So Kadesh, as I've noted, was a peace agreement, first parody peace agreement ever. Nothing predates, it, where Ramses II has an official peace agreement with Hittites after the battle. And Greg is going to talk about how it came about. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. So, yeah, as Zach said, this is first ever recorded peace treaty. Well, there might be peace treaties before that, but this is the first recorded one that is known to us. And this is the Hittite version of the treaty. The treaty was signed after the Battle of Kadesh that happened in 1274 BCE between Egypt, Ramses II, and Hittites. It had, I'm not going to describe the battle, but it was probably the biggest chariot battle ever known. They fought in chariots. About 5,000 to 6,000 chariots participated on both sides. It had pretty like vague results. Like nobody knows exactly. Kind of considered to be a draw, but each side claimed the victory. Obviously, Ramses made a lot of documents about his victory, and Hittites didn't do that much. So it kind of went into history as a victory for Egyptians. However, the Hittites held the territory, Egyptians withdrew, and so it looks a little more like a victory for Hittites, but still. So Kadesh is in the Syria right now. That was where these two empires collided. Hittites at this point were at the heights of their power. They subjugated Mitanni kingdoms at this point who actually fought on their side because they were vassal state. So now after the war, they signed this agreement. They both were understood that they have to have some kind of agreement because Egypt at this point started to get more and more harassment from the sea people. We're talking about the 1274, but there is more and more pressure coming from the sea people. And Hittites actually were very cautious about and observing the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire in Mesopotamia that eventually became dominant in the area, but not yet. So now the Egyptian version of this treaty has been discovered in 1838 in Karnak. Karnak is the religious kind of site, super site in the city of Luxor right now in Egypt, um, and um, and that's where the ancient Thebes, Egyptian Thebes, were located, and it's on the wall of one of the monuments there. And this one was discovered in 1906 German by a German team led by Hugo Wilmer. I think that's if I pronounce it right. Um, so they started to do archaeological discoveries in the city of Hattusa, which was the capital of the Hittite Empire. It's located approximately 100 miles east of Ankara in Turkey right now. And they stumbled on the Royal Library there, an amount of almost 10,000 clay tablets with cuneiforms. Hittite, so they started to, at this point, the cuneiform were deciphered already. The Egyptian hieroglyphs were deciphered, but by the Rosetta using Rosetta Stone by Champollion in like beginning 1800, like 1830s, 1840s, and he is the one who deciphered the Champollion was the one who deciphered the Egyptian version. This one they already deciphered cuneiforms and it's written in cuneiform. Hittite is the Indo-European language, unlike others. It's a syllabic script, and so the decipherment of the cuneiforms, by the way, has been very much prompted by discovery of Behistun inscription in Zagros Mountains, where there are several languages, including Old Persian, that was known, helped to decipher cuneiform. So since they knew the cuneiform, they deciphered this was fairly new language, and eventually came up with it. The text of this, by the way, also displayed in the United Nations in New York, because this is the first treaty, and the United Nations is the it's a very symbolic for the purpose of the United Nations. So the out of 10,000 tablets, 3 of them were devoted to the treaty. In particular, 2 tablets you see here, and 1 tablet in the Berlin State Museum. So that's basically it. Any questions? Okay. So I hope if anyone have questions, please go ahead. But I actually visited this museum about like a year and a half ago, and I was particularly very much impressed with this document. It's like really historic. This is the original, by the way. This is the original tablet of the treaty and the oldest known version of it.
Rick, how big would that tablet be?
What?
What's the size of that tablet? It's huge, isn't it?
No, it's not that huge. I
Oh,
would say that like you see the width of it would
Yes.
be like maybe about like 1 yard, something like
Oh,
that.
okay, okay. It looks
So
bigger on this, yeah.
yeah, it may look bigger, but it's yeah, it's that. No, it's not that big, like 3 feet. Maybe I don't know the height exactly, but maybe a little more, 5, 6 feet the most. But definitely like 3 feet in the width.
And Greg, I've always been interested. How long would it take them to do this tablet, like to write it up?
Yeah, well, I wish I knew. I
Yeah.
never tried that myself. Yeah, you could see how like it's a very tiny, yeah, and it's inscription in the clay. It's not that easy. You
No,
have to, yeah, it would take quite a while. But I would imagine that maybe more than one person worked on it. They may have had different teams um, uh, to do the inscriptions. I have no idea. It would
Greg,
have taken them months.
Greg, I did a talk on the cuneiform one time for the other history club, and to prepare, I did cuneiform myself. It goes like the wind because you're just pressing in with the stylus. So
Mhm.
it's like one motion makes a wedge, and it's done.
Mm. Okay. All right. Then maybe it's
Just
faster than I thought.
yeah, just to add to Greg's point, and then we'll get to the evolution of cuneiform. Greg, if you can go to the next slide, but I'll just add to the Kadesh. Just bear in mind that Ramses II was the first PR manager of his time. He sold to Egyptians that a draw was a win, and curved on the Temple of Karnak, the fact that he came in, he gave Hittites a way out. He basically provided a way out for Hittites, but in fact, it was more like a loss than a draw. But he was able to sell it for his own needs and to show himself, as a great pharaoh. So let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, we're
So
here.
I wanted to talk about the evolution of the cuneiform. Let's talk about a little bit of cuneiform, and then maybe Jane can also add some points to it. So the cuneiform system is a writing system that was used in Mesopotamia in 3500 to 3000 BCE. And as we know, basically it's also was used as part of the lingua franca, which is it's a form of writing, but Akkadian was written in cuneiform. Akkadian was a lingua franca or international language of that time, uh, called after the Akkadian Empire. And what does Mesopotamia, was consisted of? Basically, it was Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, Elamites, Hatti, which I've mentioned, also Assyrian, Hurrians, all did cuneiform writing. So it was a huge aspect. If you think of it, what does a cuneiform stand for? Latin word for it is it's called cunis, which is a veg. And basically, as Jane had stated, it's a wedge shaped styler that is used to write. So you just need to basically take the stylus and on the clay tablet write it, and then the clay tablet get dried up, and this is what happens. So if you go look to the left, and I'm sorry, it's sideways, but if you look on the left, there is a um, cuneiform, so to speak, evolution piece. And if you look from the beginning, they start with the pictogram, and the pictogram then was not enough to express themselves, so they have to double a picture in order to express themselves. So it's a later pictogram, instead of having one fish, it'll show two fishes. Instead of showing a god as being a sun, it will show now it shows basically triangles, and then it works its way into the, which I was talking about, the classical Assyrian language, which was which used the cuneiform writing in that respect. And on the right is basically shows where it was depicted, how it was depicted. You could see different kind of forms. You have cylinders, you have circles, you have squares. So it was depicted in several ways. And in fact, what's interesting is if a building got burnt to the ground, this clay tablets were preserved much better as as versus papyrus. So that's why a lot of them still preserved today, because it kind of dries it up and makes it even more safe for posterity. Jane, you have anything to add to the cuneiform evolution? Hello? I guess not. All right, let's go to the next slide, Greg.
You see it?
Yeah. So now, so as I've mentioned, in Istanbul Museum, you have a lot of the artifact from Sidon. Sidon is a Phoenician city, but it also was another word for it is Lisia. Lisia basically, it's Lebanon, part of the former Ottoman Empire, and then of course there was a lot of excavation. So this sarcophagus was basically dated around 430, 420 BCE, and this sarcophagus was for the one of the kings in that area who was Phoenician, and it was done in marble, and it basically resembles the shape of Adjával Lycian tombs of that area. And in this case, what you see here is a combination of Greek and Persian styles combined together in here. So if you think of it, Lycia was one of the satraps of Persia or Achaemenid Empire. And therefore, you have a lot of the combination of Greco-Persian art in here, or Achaemenid Empire. So the sarcophagus is decorated with reliefs. So Greg, go to the next slide. Okay, sarcophagus decorated with reliefs. So if you go to the left, if you look at the left, you have basically, or sorry, if you look at the middle, the side relief illustrates the lion hunt and the boar hunt, while the reliefs at the end show fighting centaurs and sphinxes. So there's a lot of that going on. Now, what's interesting is Lycian sarcophagus Sidon, together with the famous Alexander sarcophagus, are the most important ones in the area in that whole museum. So Lycian sarcophagus, is basically called as such because it was built according to the Lycian tomb tradition in Anatolia. The two female sphinxes, which is on the left, the first slide, the two female sphinxes on the pediment of the tomb are placed as cemetery guards. So they're cemetery guards basically, and the same, they also guard that particular tomb. Their lion-like bodies have been formed in the shape of a dog. In the chest wings and melancholy faces are striking. So their faces is extremely melancholic, and then they have chest wings. The lion heart in the middle, the lion hunt in the middle is depicted on the longer surface of sarcophagus. The four young hunters who are riding two chariots appear as they try to kill the wild animal. On the other surface of the wild hog hunt is depicted as well. So the garments of the hunters and horses are meticulously carved. So this is now, we're looking at the style, Greco-Persian style, where even the garments are extremely meticulously detailedly carved. And an artist has created a three-dimensional effect by placing the figures behind and on top of each other. Okay. The sculpture has successfully merged the art of Peloponnese and Lycian style of Anatolia. On one of the shorter surfaces of sarcophagus, two centaurs fighting over the deer are engraved. And so they even call it, a satrap sarcophagus, because that was part of the Achaemenid Empire at the time. And this is regarded as manifestation of the Ionian art. So it's a Greek-Persian. Ionians were part of the Anatolia at the time, an ideal, elegant style, and the sarcophagus is of crying women, which whatever, basically is what it is. So next one, go to the next one, Greg, and that's the most important sarcophagus, and Greg is going to talk about it. This is Alexander the Great tomb. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, so so this is so-called Alexander sarcophagus, Alexander tomb. It's called so because of the bas-relief you see on it that is depicting the Battle of Issus fought by Alexander against King Darius. So this tomb, as many others, were found during that effort by Ottoman Empire in Lebanon. So the excavations were found in necropolis near Sidon in Lebanon. It was conducted in 1887 by Osman Hamdi Bey, an Ottoman of Greek descent, and Yervan Dvorskan, an Ottoman of Armenian descent. Interesting how this happened. So this sarcophagus is not related to Alexander's body. I mean, that's it's originally was thought that it was a tomb of Abdolonymus, who died in 311 BCE. At that time, this was the king of Sidon that was appointed by Alexander right after the Battle of Issus, and ruled for like 22 years. But later, now the archaeologists believe that this actually sarcophagus of Mazaeus, a Persian governor of Babylon, that's what they described it. So he died in 328 BCE. So he was known. He was a friend, a close advisor of Darius III, and actually was engaged to be married to Darius's daughter, Statira II. However, he died before they could marry. She was eventually married to Alexander the Great in 324. Mazaeus died in 328 BCE. So when they were married with Statira, Alexander died the following year in 323 BCE in Babylon. And after his death, there was a rumor Statira wanted to kind of enhance her power, and she claimed that she was pregnant and carrying a son or carrying a child from Alexander. But it's actually backfired because the first wife of Alexander, Roxana, colluded with chief of staff of all the troops, Perdiccas, to kill Statira in order to kind of cement her position, her own position, the position of her son, Alexander the Fourth. So they actually they poisoned her. So now the carving that we see, right? The first on the on the left, you see the man on a horse. So that is depicting Alexander fighting the Persians in Battle of Issus. Just so you know, the Issus is the city in Syria now. It's southern part of Turkey, almost on the border of Syria. You know, the Antioch, the ancient city of Antioch, is right in the border with Syria there, where a lot of action. It's called Antakya right now, and Issus is about 40 miles north of Antakya. So just the location. That's where the Asia Minor. There's an angle, almost a straight angle there. So So the carving depicting the Alexander fighting the Persians, and he showed mounted wearing a lion skin, uh, and uh, and then there is another mounted person here. If you could see, that's supposed to be Hephaestion, which is the close. Also was at some point. At this point, he probably was dead, but he was the closest companion of Alexander and of one of his major generals. Uh, and a third Macedonian on a horse over there is identified as Perdiccas, another general. So on the opposite side, by the way, we don't see it here, but there is another barrelief that depicting the hunting lions. You know, that's another thing. So now a little bit about the Battle of Issus. As I said, it's Issus located about 40 miles of Antioch. You know, so, and it happened in November 5th of 333 BCE. This is the second major battle of Alexander's conquest. The first one was Battle of Granicus. It was fought against the commanding officers were satraps of Asia, Specifically, there was a Greek mercenary, Memnon of Rhodes, who commanded the forces of Persian Empire, and they were defeated at Battle of Granicus. And then, as Alexander moved south, Darius III decided to step in. He gathered a large army and faced faced Alexander in the Battle of Issus with much larger advantage. However, Alexander won that battle. Darius ran, and this was actually the first time that Persians lost a battle with a king being present. Usually, because it was a huge blow to the prestige of the Persian king, because he was present and he commanded the troops. So he ran, and they captured the camp, and they captured the whole family Darius. Uh, so they captured his wife, Statera I, his daughter, Statera II, and Ripetis, another daughter, and also Darius' mother, Sysigambis. So all of those women Alexander treated with utmost respect, and actually he got a lot of credit from the population of Persian Empire in the future for that, and eventually later on to boost his prestige and claim on the Persian throne, Alexander also married Statira II. So that's the tomb that's called Alexander tomb, even though it's not, but because of the depiction. But now the question happens: what really happened to the real tomb of Alexander? And I'd like to tell you a little bit about that. You know, because it seems like a very natural question. So the location of tomb of Alexander the Great is still an enduring mystery. They never found it. However, the story goes that shortly after Alexander's death in Babylon in 323, the possession of his body became a subject of negotiations between Diadoches, which are his generals. Specifically the three Diadoches, Perdiccas, Ptolemy Soter, and Seleucus Nicator. This very famous people, as we know. Perdiccas was ruling Macedonia. Ptolemy was ruling Egypt after the death, and Seleucus was ruling the remnants of the Persian Empire. So this is when, after the death of Alexander, his empire disintegrated into what we call Hellenic countries. So now, eventually was decided, because Perdiccas had a lot of weight, that the body of Alexander will be transported to Macedonia, to the city Argeia, which is a traditional place of burial for Macedonian royal family. And however, en route to Macedonia, when it was passing through Syria, on Ptolemy the Soter, the general Ptolemy, hijacked the body and brought it to Egypt. So initially, he buried it in Memphis, and in the late 4th century or early 3rd century BCE. By the way, the hijacking and the transportation happened in approximately in 321, like a couple of years after Alexander's death. But anyway, so later on, it was at the beginning of the 3rd century BC. It was transferred to the city of Alexandria, and at this point, this became the center of the Ptolemaic cult of Alexander the Great. So it brought a lot of tourists, a lot of people wanted to see it, a lot of people worshiped Alexander. It became a cult. So it was located in Alexander, and we have a historical document attestations, of the historical figures who saw the tomb. Like, for instance, in 48 BCE, Alexander's tomb was visited by Caesar. It was recorded. Then also Cleopatra, in order to finance her war against Octavian, took gold from that tomb because she needed to finance it. But after she lost the war, Alexander's resting place was visited by Octavian himself, who is said to have placed flowers on the tomb and a golden diadem upon Alexander's head, or whatever was left of it. So, according to Suetonius, which is the Roman historian of 1st century AD, Alexander's tomb was actually partially looted by Emperor Caligula. Uh, I don't know exactly the date, but we know that Caligula ruled between 37 and 41 AD. And he supposedly removed the breastplate. And then in 199 AD, Alexander tomb was sealed by Emperor Septimius Severus during his visit to Alexandria. Then later in 215 AD, a lot of items from Alexander's tomb was relocated by Emperor Caracalla. These are all things. When Christian philosopher and Bishop John Chrysostom visited Alexandria around 400 AD, he asked to see Alexander's tomb and remarked that his tomb, even his own people, know not. So apparently, this is first time where we think that maybe people already don't know where his tomb is, that it's already lost by this time. But we don't know. But however, later on, the Muslim figures supposedly claim that they have seen the tomb of Alexander in Alexandria. The Abdul Hakim in the beginning of the 9th century, Al-Masudi at the end of the 9th century, and the famous Leo the African at the end of the 15th century, actually, maybe beginning of 16th century, report have seen the Alexander's tomb. So nowadays, the Egyptian Supreme Council for Antiquities has officially recognized over 140 search attempts to find Alexander's tomb. So there are many theories and speculations of regarding the location. However, as of today, his tomb was not found. So that's the end of this little part.
Yeah, I just want to add to it before questions is initially most of the sculptures from those ancient times were brightly painted. And the way we know that this was brightly painted, you know, basically, the picture above, basically the paint reconstruction gives some idea what Kafka originally looked like. So it was brightly packed, painted red and blue in it. And also, as pointed, to the what Greg had just said, there was two battles that were actually painted. The second battle was actually a battle of Gaza. Was actually depicted on the other side, which was fought during the Wars of Successors, which is the Diadochus Alexander after Alexander's demise. And what's interesting, in whose honor this particular tomb was done, his name is Abdalonimus, as Greg has pointed out. He wanted to depict, and as Greg has pointed out, he was a successor to Alexander. That's why it was important to show that connection, and that's why he wanted himself shown on the battle with Alexander, and particularly he was also shown hunting a panther, pretty much in the same area. So Greg, go to the
well, let's see if anybody have any questions
about
this.
I'm sorry, we're rushing through this. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Seva, the interesting thing I found working at the Royal Terror Museum, and we have an Egyptian gallery, is that Alexander the Great was embalmed in honey just after his death.
Well, it's very possible, but would be very unorthodox way of embalming.
No, it's been substantiated that his body was embalmed in honey at one point.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Also, Greg, there's a question. Is there any info on who carved the sarcophagus? Of what I remember, there isn't any, right? This was just an Ionian work of the Ionian Greeks.
Yeah.
There was the author wasn't found. But it's definitely an amazing work. I mean,
this is the centerpiece because it's considered to be pot, and it's incredibly well preserved. But actually, there are so many sarcophagus from that area of necropolis, or near Sidon. There are many in the museum because I remember visiting. I'm sure Zach saw it too. And there are a lot of them in a very excellent shape. It's really amazing how they were preserved since like the 4th century BCE.
Yes.
So any other questions or any additions?
Comments? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Right, sorry. I want to point it out there, guys. So we start introducing, this is the first one we're doing, the walkthrough museums. So, if you guys like it, let us know, because the next one, we might do an, Hermitage from St. Petersburg. So we could, basically go through the ones we visited, actually, maybe we'll do Louvre at some point, Athens and, archaeological museum. So we want to continue because we can't really visit a lot of the places these days. So it's something is nice to point out. So let us know if this is something that you like, and then we'll continue doing it. Next one, I'm jumping time a little bit, right? We're going from AD 300 AD. Now we're actually in, we're going from BC to AD. This is a sculpture of Emperor Valentinus II. Who was he? He was a Roman emperor, commonly known as Valentinus. Around the time of 375 AD to 392, already a Christian emperor. The sculpture shows that emperor is standing youth, which was important to show that. His body is resting on the left leg, and the right foot is slightly away. The head is turned toward the left, and his left arm is bent at the right angle. The The forearms stretched a little outward. He holds a short scepter, lent upon the left shoulder. The right arm is hanging naturally with a slight elbow reflection. The costume, including a tunic with a long tight sleeves worn under a second tunic, so he's wearing two tunics with a short and ample sleeves, is the same worn by the high magistrate from Constantine time. So this basically showing his contemporaries would wear tunics just like that. The face is shaven and youthful, so it's important to them, not to depict like in Greek times they used to, show beards. But the short hair are, girded with the diadem made of the double row of the pearls attached to the edges of the strip and decorated on the front with a cameo or precious stone. The sculpture was found in September of 905. His designation is not certain, and inscription located in the same area where the gathered fragment of the statue had been found refers almost certainly to Valentine II. So I just wanted to show you something from the Christian era. Let's go to another slide. And Greg, before you get to the slide, can you play a first video? It's actually statue of the god Bes. This is how the statue would have looked. So this statue dates around 600, 500 BC. And it's a large statue of dwarf god Bes. He was basically located in Essos works hall. Bes was an ancient Egyptian dwarf god. He was complex, being who was both a deity and demonic fighter. He was a god of war, yet he was also a patron of a childbirth and the home. It was associated with sexuality, humor, music, dancing. Bes was also became popular with the Phoenicians and in Cyprus. I'm good. Oh yeah. 1 second, guys. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. So how do we know the origins of this particular statue? The Egyptians deity, which is this Bes, was worshipped in later periods by dynastic history as a protector of households and particularly mothers and children. In time, he would be regarded as defender of everything good and the enemy of all that is bad. While past studies identified Bes as a Middle Kingdom import from Nubia. As we know, Nubia was to the west of Egypt, and apparently this dwarf god that's basically depicted that we're showing came from Nubia, and we know Nubia was used by Egypt mostly as gold mine area, and we did know there was Nubian pharaohs at some point in Egypt as well. So, but some more recent searches believe that it to be Egyptian native, so it's not Nubian. And mentions of the Bes can be traced to the southern lands of Old Kingdom. So it goes even back to the Old Kingdom. However, modern scholars such as James Romana demonstrated that in earliest inception, Bes was representation of the lion rearing up on its hind legs. So it's not even a made up structure. It's a lion just rearing up on its hind legs. After the third intermediate period, Bes is often seen as just the head of the face, often worn as amulets. So it was kind of like to scare the evil spirits, and so to speak. So another theory connected to Bes' role in both the protection of the children and women in labor is the Bes as the figure of miscarried fetus. Bes is also known to be wearing a lion skin on his back. Bes is supposed to be a dwarf. Most statues of the Bes are teeny, child-sized like at most. This one is gigantic, good 6 meters tall. So the video we showed you in Istanbul Museum of Archaeological Museum was pretty tall. That's it. Go to the next one, Greg.
Yeah,
Any questions on that one?
we are at the next one, by the way.
Okay, so now we're talking about Athena. So what is Athena? So basically it was a goddess, important goddess of many things. She is a goddess of wisdom, courage, aspiration, civilization, law, justice, strategic warfare, mathematics, strength, strategy, the arts, crafts, and the skill. So basically, she is mostly known for her strategic skill in warfare, is often portrayed in comparison to heroes and patrons of goddess. So how was the Athena created? Basically, one day Zeus had a headache and she popped out of his forehead. That's the mysticism of it. So what's interesting, the drapery of the classical and Hellenistic period of Greek art sometimes appear purely as a foil for nudity. So the ones that she's wearing, and clinging and spiraling around the body. Often, this effect occurs in response to composition requirements rather to any natural phenomena or dressing practices. It was socially acceptable that textile making was primarily women's responsibility, and production of high-quality textiles was regarded as an accomplishment for women of a high stature. The most expensive textile was finely woven linen and very soft wool. The linen was almost transparent, as the Greek had no problem showing off their body. So Athena is wearing a peplos, consists of a large rectangular piece of material folded vertically and hung from the shoulders with a broad overfold. During the early period, it was belted around the waist, usually beneath the overfold. If the overfold was long, however, the belt was sometimes placed on top of it, as seen in many statues of Athena. Also note that contrappasto pose with a weight on one leg and extension of the peplos to the ankle, as would be proper for Greek women. So there's a particular way that Greek women are supposed to conduct themselves. Greg, let's play the last video, and then we'll have open for discussion. This is a video of Hagia Sophia, and this is just in general one of my visits to Istanbul. I just want to show how it looks. Now we know it transferred to mosque, and probably no longer would be a museum, and therefore a lot of the things are going to be forbidden to see. I only see oh, okay. So the most important thing I just want to point out, where we're looking right now, Hagia Sophia, is you see those medallions that posted for each of the, I guess, hadiths for the Muslim religion. What happens is prior to that, they were I think they were encryption. Christian artifacts, and because Mehmed mother, or who he called Brankovic, was Christian, when he entered Hagia Sophia, he didn't want to close up any of the icons, I guess, and any of the crucifix. So all he did is just they put a plaster on top of it, and it's been around for so many years. And then when it became a museum, they removed it, and now it's became a mosque again. Also, prior to entering the archaeological museum, we have Hagia Irene, who was a wife of Constantine, and we know who is Byzantium is called after, and basically that particular Hagia Irene is an empty building, and is not used as anything. It used to be an armory at some point used by Ottomans. So it's also a sad point that it's not it's the most important structure for Christianity or Orthodoxy is particularly being wasted away. So anybody has any questions?
Just want to mention that Hagia Sophia was built by the Emperor Justinian in the 6th century AD, and was the largest Christian temple ever. For many, many, many years. I don't even know if it's if the St. Peter's in Rome larger than this may have been, but it's only been built to its contemporary size in 16th century. Prior to that, and St. Peter was much smaller.
You mentioned, Zach, that a lot of the exhibits would not be viewable in the future. So
Yeah, this one, yeah, because
only this one?
Erdogan is converting it back to mosque.
Converted already.
Yeah, back to mosque, so it's no longer a tourist. I actually have visited this about a year and a half ago. Thanks God, it was second time, but that's it. Everything will be covered now, all the frescoes and everything.
Oh.
Also, I saw a PBS documentary that was recently shown about how the dome was built, and along with that was the fact that they would not be able to continue their work because it's now a functioning Islamic temple.
Yes, well, a little bit about the dome. It's interesting, Beryl. You just mentioned it. When it was built by obviously it was a Christian architect. It fell actually. First time when they built the dome, it fell, and obviously during the Constantine time, they tried to reinforce it, and now it's still standing. But what's interesting, in the middle of the floor, they actually have a point how much of the dome moved. It might cave and fall again. So it's dangerous. So it moved quite a bit.
So you mean that the exhibits will not be viewable and it's dangerous to go in there?
Correct.
Oh, you go.
Yeah. So two most, but you know what? There's other museums there. For honorable mention, Topkapi. Topkapi is a sultan. Sultans lived there from, initiation of the Ottoman Empire to 19th century, and then there's a new palace as well, and both are incredible. If you visit. They have a particularly description of harem and how the women used to live, how they used to have eunuchs that used to guard them because they were afraid that they might sleep with those women of sultan's women. So therefore eunuchs wouldn't do anything. So, and they were only hired from Africa. They were African slaves, which was an interesting aspect as well, though. So.
Zach and Greg, it always interests me. Money always talks. That would have brought in a lot of tourist dollars, wouldn't it?
You're talking about the
Yes.
Hagia Sophia?
No, into the Istanbul Museum.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, there are a lot of tourists there, but I don't think most of the tourists do go to visit there. They hang out in the area in like see Hagia Sophia, Blue Mosque. There is this area. This is a little bit outside of that area.
So it wouldn't be a big monetary loss then
for those who are interested in history. A lot of people just
Yeah.
go see the most important sites. They don't even bother going to that.
Okay, you just educated me then on Istanbul.
Yeah. It's I've seen when I went there. There weren't that many people, to tell the truth, and it's a shame because certainly, the most attention to me was all the sarcophagus there. I mean, like they were amazing, and there's so many of them. It's really such a monumental job they did in by Ottoman effort. Actually, Sultan paid for it, and they brought a lot of architects, and certainly this treaty. I was there aren't too much left of the Hittite culture. It's it's really I mean they found the royal library, which is great, but in terms of monuments, they're all in a there are very few of them and always very little. I was also in the Ankara Archaeological Museum, which is also pretty good, not as big. I was disappointed. I don't think there aren't that many in existence of well preserved examples of Hittite culture.
Yeah,
But also, what also disappointed me, a lot of the Ionian Greek culture, especially Christian culture, is buried outside of the museum with no inscription or
Oh.
any explanation to it. Um, so it's like basically a junkyard of tombs and graveyard, and there's no. It's just basically says Greek art, and nobody took their time to go through it meticulously and inscribe where it came from, what period, and and they're the most fascinating also. But there's so many in archaeological museum about Ionian Greek, so they probably have to build another wing, but they have to do a substantial work in identifying those artifacts.
and I put on that chat to go to Google Arts and Culture, and they have over 2,000 of the best museums in the world.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is this was just initial. I want to see how it goes, if people like it,
I
and
liked
then we will
it.
do
I liked it.
we will do Hermitage, next, somewhere maybe in February. If you know, obviously, it's mostly centered around European Russian culture, and most importantly, I want to focus on Scythian culture. As you know, Scythians lived in Ukraine, Dniester area, Crimea area, and they actually culture that disappeared. And they were Iran. I mean, people from Iran, or so to Aryan people, yeah, and they basically disappeared. But they have the most amazing collection that Scythian warlords would order from Greeks that lived and colonized Crimea area, and they would make most amazing gold necklaces, gold ornaments, and this particularly not doesn't have a lot of light in it, and the 99.9% of it is in Hermitage. Plus, the Russian czars did an amazing job and built quite a collection of art. And then we'll go through a lot of the art pieces, by Van Gogh, and such. So it would be interesting to look at that, and we'll go through each of the areas. And I took a lot of pictures, and there's a lot of and the building itself is amazing. It used to be a winter palace for the czars that lived there. And if anybody watched the old movies from Russia, the Potomkin and all that stuff, it's particularly depicted them entering the communists or the revolutionaries entering the Winter Palace during the revolution.
I actually went there in 1978 with a group of Americans to the Hermitage, and we were in there all by ourselves.
Oh, wow. They closed the museum for you guys? Wow.
Yeah, well, back then the Olympics was about to start, right? 1980. So their detente was at the highest. Yes, they took us through the Winter Palace, everything.
The Americans didn't go to the Olympics for that one. So
Yeah, that's right. They came there. I was the only Canadian. Was one of the best trips I've ever had.
nice. Yeah, I mean, look, Russians used to appreciate any of the foreigners visiting their country because it wasn't easy, or it could be dangerous, like visiting Iran right now.
Yeah, right.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think it's
So,
that dangerous to visit Russia now.
No, no, I'm talking about back in the communist time.
Oh, in communist, you think it was Sanjay?
Well, what's interesting is
No,
in
I don't know.
Hermitage Museum, they have an old floor from like, obviously from 300 years ago. The tiles are actually worn out, and they make people wear plastic shoes, to go through the tiles. Otherwise, they'll ruin it. So it's incredible. So they're afraid that the tiles, and they're the most incredible tiles. They used to have the Yantar room. What is Yantar in English? I forget.
Amber.
Yeah, yeah, room that was stolen by Hitler because it was outside of Leningrad or St. Petersburg, and then Hitler took it, dismantled it, and never returned it to Russia. And in 1986, a German company paid $3.5 million to restore it. So there's an interesting fact about it as well.
The only thing I remember is The Crouching Boy by Michelangelo. I still have the books from there in the Hermitage.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was, he has the Romanovs had an incredible collection of, and they were buying the most incredible art from the top artists at the time when they were still alive, I guess. So they had an inkling for gathering valuables. They were czars. So what how do you say no to a czar?
Niet.
Yeah.
Niet.
Yeah. Anyway, Wednesday, we're gonna do about maybe 40 minutes to an hour. Idi Amin, who was, an African, obviously, I don't know if you call him a leader, but let's just say a leader that worshipped Hitler, and obviously had a lot of issues. I mean, you probably watch some of the movies and stuff like that, but. And then we'll do like everybody would grab a drink. We'll just cheer the ending of a very difficult year for maybe 5-10 minutes. Say good wishes to everybody on Wednesday at 7. So please join us. And then we'll move on to our regular schedule. We have history of beer coming up. We have Anabasis, Xenophon. Ancient text. We have a lot of interesting aspects. Please look at the schedule as well. All right, my friends, and I want to wish everybody have a nice, the rest of the Sunday. I'm in Dominican Republic right now, so I'm enjoying.
I kind of thought you looked kind of relaxed there, Zach.
I know. Usually I'm tense, and I'm way too relaxed and not even showing my picture.
Are you feeling suitably guilty because you actually went somewhere by plane, I presume?
Yeah, I mean, look, I had to take my kids out. They're
I know.
Dad, what an excuse, Zach. What an excuse.
Yeah,
let me tell you, I don't even have to go anywhere. It is so nice here. It's incredible. I mean, I wish I could take the whole history group and just do history podcast here.
We're all suitably jealous.
We'll go vicariously.
Here we go.
We'll pretend we're there.
Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach and Greg. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank
you
you.
so much.
All the best in the coming new year.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
See you Wednesday if you come in. Wish everybody a nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good swim.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.